My family skipped my birthday but threw my sister a party, so I canceled every bill in my name and let them sit in the dark. It was for my sister. I waited. Then my mom messaged, "You're still covering the electricity, right?" I replied, "Definitely." Then I shut off every account I managed. Left a note in the smart thermostat, "Find warmth in each other." At 8:03 a.m. I got 41 missed calls. One said, "Emergency." What really got to me wasn't that they missed my birthday. It was that they didn't even try to lie about it. No fake excuse, no white lie, not even a rush text pretending they remembered late. Just complete silence. The kind that hits you harder because it isn't a mistake, it's intentional. I turned 29 on a Thursday this year. Not a milestone birthday or anything, but still. It's not like they didn't know. My mom used to make a big deal about how I was born right before midnight. How I almost ended up a Friday baby. Every year she brought it up like it was some fun family trivia. This year, nothing. Not even a text. I didn't plan anything big, I just figured we'd do what we usually did, order food, maybe bake something at home. Just us, no friends. We never had a tradition, but there was always something. I thought maybe they were planning a surprise. I actually gave them the benefit of the doubt. I kept looking at the time, thinking they were going to show up at any minute. By 10 p.m., I was sitting in my apartment alone with the leftover pizza I ordered for myself. No missed calls, no messages. I texted my sister just to see what was going on. "Hey, what's up?" Not even a read receipt. I went to bed thinking something must have happened. Something big enough that they'd all gone quiet. I even started to worry. But then Saturday morning, I saw it. My aunt posted a picture. Ashley was smiling, holding a giant cake with pink candles. The whole family was there, my parents, our cousins, the neighbors, even Grandma. All of them smiling like they'd never missed a thing. The caption said, "Thank you for the lovely evening with the family, the cake, and the surprise for Ashley's birthday. So much love." Ashley's birthday is 3 days after mine. That meant that when they ignored me on Thursday, they were already planning that party, already texting each other, picking out decorations, laughing, coordinating the surprise. They didn't forget. They skipped me on purpose. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I just sat there for a long time staring at the photo, zooming in on their faces. At one point I actually laughed, but it wasn't because anything was funny. That night my mom finally texted me, "You're still paying the electric bill, right?" No mention of my birthday, no apology, just straight to business like I was a utility company. I stared at that message for a while before I typed back, "Of course." Then I got to work. I opened every account, electric, internet, Netflix, the streaming subscriptions, even the Amazon Prime they used to order everything. All in my name, all set up last year when Dad lost his job and they said they were rebuilding. I shut down everything. I drove to their house after midnight. I didn't knock. I still had the spare key. I left one thing behind, a sticky note on the thermostat. It just said, "Find warmth in each other." That was all. By 8:03 the next morning, I had 41 missed calls. Some from my mom, some from Ashley, one from Dad, and one from a number saved in my phone as urgent. I didn't answer any of them. Not yet. Let them feel it for a change. They didn't even pretend to be sorry. That was the part I kept turning over in my head the morning after I shut everything down. No one even tried to lie, to claim they'd sent a message and it didn't go through. They just acted like it wasn't a big deal. I guess to them it wasn't. After I left the note on the thermostat and walked out, I turned my phone off for 24 hours. Not to make a point, but because I didn't trust myself not to answer if they started calling. I knew I'd say too much too fast. I wanted them to sit in the dark for a while, both literally and metaphorically. When I turned it back on the next morning, there were 41 missed calls, a bunch of voicemails. The first few were calm, confused voices, mostly from my mom and Ashley. "Hey, something's wrong with the Wi-Fi. Netflix isn't working. The thermostat won't turn on." By the fifth voicemail, my dad's voice started showing up. Less confused, more irritated. "Did you forget to pay the bills? What's going on here?" There was one from Ashley, annoyed and sarcastic. "If this is about your birthday, that's really childish." That one I saved. By the end of the day, my mom finally sent a message that acknowledged the shutdown. "Why did you cut everything off without warning?" I didn't answer. Instead, I logged into the insurance dashboard and removed their car from my multi-vehicle policy. I'd added it last summer when Dad said the payments were killing them. Just for a while, he'd said. It had been 14 months. I also canceled the streaming platforms we shared, Hulu, HBO, even the DoorDash subscription Ashley used at college. I didn't leave a note this time. I wanted the absence to speak for itself. 2 days later, my mom called while I was at work. I picked up out of pure curiosity. She didn't even ask how I was. "You had no right to turn off the electricity," she said. "That house is still partly yours. You lived here." "You missed my birthday," I said. "All of you. You didn't forget. You just chose not to show up. We were all very busy." Then why did you have a party 2 days later? Another pause. Ashley's birthday is different. It was already planned. You had 2 days. You should have said something if it mattered that much. That's what did it for me. That one sentence, like it was on me to beg them to care. We've been good to you, she added. Family doesn't act this way. You texted me about the electric bill before you even realized what you missed. And you're making us suffer for one mistake. That was the problem. They thought it was one mistake. I hung up. That night, I checked my credit card account. There were 4 active subcards. Ashley had 1. So did my mom. I canceled all of them. They'd used those cards like they were entitled to them. Gas, food, Amazon, everything linked to my name. 2 days later, my dad called. It was brief. This ends now, he said. You've made your point. It's not a point, I said. It's a shift. What the hell does that mean? It means I'm not your backup plan anymore. He didn't like that. You wouldn't have any of that money without us. You owe this family. You threw a birthday party for Ashley and didn't even send me a text. Are you really going to hold that over us? You're punishing your own parents over something petty. Petty, I repeated. Right, you think you're above this family now? Fine, and don't come around when things get hard. I wasn't planning to. He hung up. That week, they went full Cold War. No texts, no calls, just quiet. The kind of silence that tries to manipulate you into apologizing first. But I didn't budge. They didn't know it yet, but I still had more strings to cut. I had no intention of dragging this out, but I also wasn't about to let them think they still had me on a leash. Let them see what life looks like when I'm not quietly fixing everything behind the scenes. Let them feel the real weight of forgetting. By the end of the second week, they stopped calling. That should have felt like peace. Instead, it felt like some weird kind of standoff, one where I wasn't sure if I'd won anything or just permanently lit a match under the last bridge. The silence didn't mean they'd given up, it meant they were regrouping. I started hearing little things from the outside. A friend of my cousin texted me randomly to ask if everything was okay between me and my parents. She said my mom had been venting at church about how I'd turned my back on the family. I didn't correct her. If that's how they wanted to frame it, fine, but I knew they'd be back. It took exactly 23 days. That morning, I got a text from my mom. Just one sentence. Can we have a proper talk as a family? I didn't answer. An hour later, Ashley messaged me too. Can you come over for dinner tonight? We want to talk. I didn't know what to make of it. For a second, I considered going just to see what they'd try. Curiosity was stronger than any hope of reconciliation. I said I'd come. The house felt colder than I remembered, literally, and otherwise they must have had the heat turned way down to save money. Grandma was sitting in her usual spot on the couch, wrapped in a blanket. She smiled when she saw me and said, "About time." In the dining room, everyone was already seated, like they were waiting for a verdict. "We've been thinking," my dad said. "Maybe things got out of hand. We could have handled things better." He didn't say sorry. He said, "Things." Ashley jumped in. "We were wrong to forget your birthday." That was more direct. I appreciated it, even if it felt coached. My mom added, "We'd like to start over, have dinner together like we used to, maybe reconnect." It was the most united front they'd put up in years. I nodded slowly. I wasn't sure if it was genuine or just strategy, but I wanted to believe it, so I said, "Okay, we can try." For the next hour, we actually talked about small things, work, Grandma's health, a new dog someone in the neighborhood got. It felt normal, strange, but kind of nice. At the end of the night, just as I was putting on my jacket, my dad said, "So now that we've cleared the air, maybe you could help out again, just with the insurance and utilities for now until we get back on track." Of course, I thought, there it was. I said no. He blinked like he hadn't heard me right. I said, "No, I'm not doing that again." The mood in the room flipped like a switch. My mom looked at him and he stood up. "If you're not going to help your own family, then maybe you don't belong here." Grandma looked up sharply and said, "That's enough." But it wasn't. He pointed at the door. "You can leave." I didn't argue. I walked out. It was the first time I felt truly done. A few days later, I got a message from Grandma. She wanted to meet, not at their house, at mine. She said they needed to come to me this time. That was the beginning of something different. I had no idea what was coming next. They showed up without warning. Well, not entirely without warning. Grandma called that morning. She asked if I'd be home, said it might be a good idea to stay in. She didn't say why. I asked if it was about them. She didn't answer, just said, "You'll know when it happens." Then she hung up. 3 hours later, I saw their car pull into my driveway. My mom, dad, and Ashley stepped out like they were going door to door selling apologies. They stood there for a minute before anyone rang the bell. I watched from the kitchen. I could have ignored them. I thought about it, but something made me go to the door and open it. None of them said anything at first. My mom gave a small wave. My dad was staring at the ground like it owed him something. Ashley looked nervous for once in her life. "Can we come in?" my mom asked. I stepped aside. We sat in the living room, each on separate pieces of furniture like strangers at a doctor's office. The silence dragged until my dad finally spoke. This isn't about money. That was how he started. I don't know if he meant for it to sound defensive, but it did. He continued, we talked, all of us. We weren't fair to you. I waited. My mom leaned forward. You did a lot for us, quietly. We just got used to it. We took you for granted. Ashley spoke up too, which was unexpected. And we were wrong to make you feel like you didn't matter. That was cruel. I didn't see it at the time, but it was. It wasn't the same rehearsed tone I'd heard before. It sounded like they'd actually talked, maybe even argued about it. Maybe Grandma got through to them. My mom looked around the room. We're not here to ask you to fix anything. We just want to know if it's too late to start over. Not with help, just with you. I didn't answer right away. I looked at them, all sitting there like visitors in a stranger's house. It was the first time they'd entered my space, not expecting anything. I'm not helping with the bills again, I said. Not 1 cent, that part's over. My dad nodded slowly, understood. Everything from now on has to be real. No asking for favors disguised as conversations, no guilt, no silence when it matters. They all agreed. I wasn't sure I believed it would last, but I let them stay. We talked for a while about little things. Grandma's cooking, some old neighbor that moved out, my job. Nobody asked me for anything, and it felt almost normal. They left after a couple of hours. My mom hugged me carefully, like she wasn't sure she was allowed. My dad just said, thanks for letting us come. Ashley said nothing, just smiled like someone who wasn't sure what came next. After they left, I sat on the couch staring at the empty space they just filled. I wanted to believe they changed, but I'd also lived long enough to know people don't flip switches. They adjust when they're cold, and they go back to old habits the moment the heat's back on. 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a small white card, handwritten, careful block letters. You've reminded them what it feels like to lose something. Don't forget what it felt like to be forgotten. No signature, no name, just that. It shook me more than any of their apologies because it was the truth. I had spent years making sure they never felt the absence of anything, but when it was my turn to be seen, they looked away. Now I had a decision to make, not about them, about me. Whether this was healing or just the eye of the storm. The letter sat on my counter longer than it should have. I moved it once to wipe underneath, then put it right back like it belonged there. It wasn't threatening, but it wasn't comforting either. Just a quiet sentence I couldn't stop thinking about. You've reminded them what it feels like to lose something. Don't forget what it felt like to be forgotten. Part of me thought one of them had written it. Ashley, maybe, or even Grandma. But the handwriting didn't match. It was too neat. Block letters like someone who didn't want their style recognized, which made it worse. Someone knew. Someone was watching close enough to send a reminder, and they were right. At first, things stayed quiet, uneventful. Even the group chat that had been dead for weeks suddenly had small pings. My mom sent a photo of Grandma holding a pie she baked. My dad said, "Happy Monday," one morning out of nowhere, which I ignored. Ashley direct messaged me a meme about siblings that she would have never sent a month ago. I didn't know if it was an olive branch or bait. For a while, it felt almost like a life I could have believed in if I hadn't lived the last 3 decades. And then, predictably, the tone shifted. It was Friday night when I got the message from my mom. Just wondering, when you said you weren't helping with bills anymore, did you mean everything? Because Dad's car needs work and we're stretched this month. I didn't respond. Saturday morning, Ashley called. She jumped straight into it like we were already mid-conversation. So about the car thing, I think Mom texted you. Yeah, she waited. And I said, I'm not helping anymore. There was a silence on the line, like she was genuinely surprised. But things are better now. That was the whole point of coming over. No, the point was honesty. I'm being honest. I'm not paying for things anymore. Well, this isn't like a luxury, not 10. It's the car. Dad needs it for work. I could hear the irritation rising, but I didn't feed it. I'm not doing it. You're unbelievable sometimes, you know that. And she hung up. By the time I checked my phone that evening, I had 3 messages from my dad, all of them short. So this is how it's going to be. You've made your choice. If we're not family anymore, just say it. No calls, just statements, like he was declaring war but didn't want to hear the other side. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I knew exactly what would happen next, and the first was right. Sunday, I drove over to Grandma's. She'd asked me to pick up some groceries for her. Eggs, bread, a specific brand of orange marmalade she swore by. I didn't ask how she was getting by without the family credit card I'd canceled. I had a feeling she'd never used it anyway. When I walked in, she was in her robe, slippers, reading a paperback mystery novel with half the pages falling out. She smiled when she saw me, but her face dropped just slightly as she said, "They're slipping again." I know. She handed me a cup of tea like we always did when I visited. The silence was comfortable, familiar. After a few minutes, she said, They think if they push just a little, you'll cave. They always thought that this time's different. They're starting to realize they don't know you without the wallet attached. I stayed longer than I planned. We talked about nothing: TV, an old neighbor who got arrested, a bad cake she baked last week. It felt like safety. When I got home that evening, I found it. A new group chat had been created. Family meeting tomorrow. Our house. 7 p.m. No context, no greeting, just an invitation that sounded more like a summons. It had been made by Ashley. My mom and dad were already in it. Grandma wasn't. That told me everything. They wanted a meeting, but not with everyone. Just the three of them and me. I didn't reply. I just stared at the name of the group. They were going to try to reset the board again, but this time they were going to push harder. Maybe guilt, maybe anger, maybe promises they didn't plan to keep. Whatever it was, I wasn't walking in unprepared, because now I had nothing left to lose except the piece of peace I'd started to build without them. I never replied to the group chat, but at exactly 6:56 p.m., I turned off my car engine in their driveway. The house looked the same chipped paint on the garage, same porch light flickering like a dying firefly. But everything else felt different, colder, like I was pulling up to a building where someone I used to know lived. Ashley opened the door before I knocked. No greeting, no smile, just a silent nod. Then she stepped aside. They were all in the dining room already. 4 chairs set up around the table, perfectly spaced. The fourth one, the one left for me, was pulled out slightly, like they were trying to look welcoming without actually being welcoming. I sat down. No one said anything for a full minute. Then my dad cleared his throat like we were about to start a corporate strategy meeting. "We wanted to have this conversation face to face," he said. My mom nodded. "Things haven't been right, we know that." Ashley leaned forward. "We know what we did and we know what we didn't do." They were trying, I could tell. Not just to fix it, trying not to blow it. Carefully choosing every word like I was a landmine they weren't sure how to step around. "We took advantage of you," my mom said, "and we let it go too far. You were there for us, and we gave nothing back." "We know an apology doesn't erase what happened," Ashley added, "but we're not here to ask you for anything." I just sat back in the chair and listened. I didn't nod. I didn't interrupt. I wanted to hear the full version of their truth before I said anything. "We miss you," my mom said. "Not what you did for us, you. That's what we're asking for, a second chance to know our son again." That part almost hit something in me. Almost. When they were done talking, I sat up and said, "I forgive you, I meant it. At least the part of me that needed to let go did." They exhaled like I'd lifted some invisible burden off their backs. There was this brief, strange moment where everything felt suspended, like we were on the edge of something new. For a little while after, we just talked. Casual stuff. Safe topics. A movie Ashley watched. Grandma's blood pressure. My mom made a joke about burning chicken last week. It was almost eerie how normal it felt. Then as I was standing up to leave, my dad said it. "So down the line, once things settle again, you'd maybe be open to helping a little. Not like before, just a bit. We could really use it." The words hung in the air like smoke. I turned to him slowly. "No," he blinked. "No, not right now. I meant in the future, once." "No," I said again. "Not later, not ever." It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. My mom looked like she wanted to say something but didn't. Ashley looked like she couldn't believe I had actually said it. My dad stood up. "Then what the hell was all this?" "This was me giving you a chance to be honest, and you were. But the moment things felt stable, you started looking for an opening." He pointed toward the door. "You can go." Before I could move, I heard Grandma's voice from behind me. I didn't know she was even in the house. "No, he won't," she said. "He's not leaving like that." She came into the room holding a glass of water, standing straight despite her knees. "You don't get to push him out again just because he didn't give you the answer you wanted." My dad didn't say a word, just walked into the kitchen. My mom stared at the floor. Ashley sat frozen like she wanted to disappear. I walked out on my own. 3 days later, they showed up at my place. All 3 of them, standing in the same order on my porch, but this time Grandma was with them. They didn't text. They didn't call. They just came. I didn't open the door at first. I watched from behind the blinds. They didn't knock. They just waited. After a few minutes, I opened the door. "We're not here to ask," my mom said. "We're here because we're ready to listen. We want to know you again," Ashley added. "For real this time." My dad didn't say anything, but he looked different, smaller, almost tired. I let them in. We sat around my kitchen table, my table in my home, and they didn't ask me for money. They didn't talk about the car or the internet or the bills. They asked about me. They asked about how I felt that day when no one showed up, what it was like to feel invisible. And this time, they actually listened. It wasn't a full repair. That doesn't happen in a single evening, but it was something real. Before they left, my mom turned to me and said, "We'll probably screw up again, but we're going to keep showing up even if you don't answer." I nodded. The next morning, a second letter arrived in the mail. Same handwriting, same no-return address. This is the part where they either become better or just better at pretending. You'll know soon enough. I folded the paper and tucked it in the back of my kitchen drawer. I wasn't sure which version of them I'd just seen, but I was ready. Either way. Sitting in the silence of my apartment that night, after the adrenaline of the confrontation had faded, I realized that the hardest part wasn't cutting the bills, it was cutting the hope. For years I had functioned as the invisible scaffolding of their lives. I was the person who ensured the lights stayed on, the screens stayed bright, and the pantry stayed full, all while convincing myself that my financial contributions were a form of love. I thought if I made myself indispensable, I would finally be undeniable. I was wrong. Being indispensable just made me a utility. And you don't thank the light switch for working, you only notice it when it breaks. I walked to my window and looked out at the streetlights. 29 years old, I felt decades older, or perhaps just finally awake. I began to reflect on every holiday I'd downplayed, every "it's okay" I'd uttered when they forgot an important date or canceled plans at the last minute because Ashley had a crisis. I had been complicit in my own erasure. By never demanding a seat at the table, I had taught them that I was perfectly happy standing in the kitchen, washing the dishes while they ate the cake. The family meeting had been the final autopsy of our old dynamic. Watching my father's face shift from feigned remorse to cold entitlement the moment I said no was the most honest he had been in years. It was a brutal, necessary clarity. He didn't want a son, he wanted a subsidy. And my mother, her silence was the loudest thing in the room. She was the one who remembered the midnight I was born, yet she was the same woman who prioritized the optics of a party over the heart of her child. I realized then that forgiveness is often misunderstood. I did forgive them, but forgiveness isn't a reset button, it's a release valve. I forgave them so I wouldn't have to carry the heat of that anger in my chest every morning. But forgiveness doesn't mean I have to provide the electricity for them to ignore me again. It doesn't mean I have to hand back the keys to my peace. That second letter, the one tucked in my kitchen drawer, haunts me in a way I didn't expect. This is the part where they either become better or just better at pretending. It's a cynical thought, but a protective one. I find myself watching our new interactions through a glass wall. When Ashley texts me a joke, I laugh, but I also look for the hook. When my mom asks how my day was, I answer, but I wait for the pivot toward a favor. It's a lonely way to live, but it's a safe one. There is a grief in this new version of us. It's the grief of losing the family I thought I had, and the even deeper grief of realizing they never existed in the way I imagined. I am learning to build a life where my worth isn't tied to my bank account or my utility. I am learning that no is a complete sentence, and that being the reliable one is often just a polite term for the one we can walk on. The house is quiet now. The bills are paid, but only mine. The warmth in my apartment comes from a heater I bought and a life I'm finally owning. If they truly want to know me, they'll have to find me in the light, not the dark. They'll have to see me when I'm not doing anything for them. And if they can't do that, if the silence returns because the money stopped, then I'll know that the only thing I truly lost was a burden I should have put down a long time ago. I am 29, and for the first time in my life, I am not waiting for a text, an apology, or a party. I am just here. And for now, that has to be enough.